So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the NITheCS Colloquium. My name is Francesco Petruccione, and I'm the director of NITheCS. Yeah? And I see there are a few persons in the audience in this venue that usually don't come, we have never seen before. So welcome to this colloquium. We are here every Monday at 4, yeah? And we have talks in these 8 disciplines of NITEP. So I'm sure there will be every Monday a talk that interests you. And I encourage you to join our mailing list so that you can receive directly the announcement to all the activities. Okay, end of the advertising. So this afternoon, I'm very happy to have Barbara van Asch as a speaker. Barbara is based in Stellenbosch. So let me do the things correctly. He's in the Department of Genetics at university. And she's a geneticist, did a PhD at University of Porto in Portugal. And she's interested in alternative food systems, yeah, like not eating popcorn, but insects. So we had to check what was in her brown bag when she was snacking before the talk. I don't know. I didn't look inside. Yeah, and and she's also interested in the power of mycelium, and she will tell us everything about it and how we can use it to save our planet. Yeah. Thank you very much, Barbara, for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco, for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here. Last time I was here, I was sitting where Ruan is, more or less, and he was doing the talking, and I was doing the sitting. And it's wonderful to see such a diverse audience, including my postgrads, members of staff, even undergrads. They're going to get extra marks for attending. And I'm very happy to be able to talk about this to a wider audience. Originally, this talk was called The Power of Mycelium V2, because a few weeks ago I gave an earlier iteration of this to a smaller group at our Faculty of Agri-Sciences. And I am very grateful for the opportunity to address a bigger audience and to share with you my thoughts on recent developments on the power of mycelium. So the first aspect of mycelium is, what is it? It can be considered the root of the mushroom, which is the most visible structure of a fungus. It is composed of a network of hyphae, which are tubular cells that grow at the tips. They are made of polysaccharides, chitin, glucans, and proteins, and they are involved in feeding, growth, expansion, and reproduction of the organism. They are experts biomass recyclers, and they are also symbionts in many cases and pathogens in many other cases. What we usually are more familiar with is the mushroom, but keep in mind when you're looking at mushrooms. Shall I just speak loud without the microphone? It's fine. When we're looking at mushrooms, we are actually looking at reproductive structures. So if that's a thing for you, have fun. But most of the organism is usually invisible to the eye. And they come in a huge diversity of specialities and properties. They can kill you if you are an insect. They can kill you if you are a human. This is Amanita phalloides, also known as the death cap, one of the most, if not the most, poisonous mushroom to us humans. This is a very tasty chicken of the woods. This is a beautiful Phyloboletus glowing in the dark in a garden in Singapore. And we also have mushrooms that are very popular for their mind-altering properties. They've been used for this purpose for thousands of years. They are also very remarkable because they can be huge. The biggest organisms on Earth are fungi, and I'll give you two examples, both in the same genus, in the genus Armillaria. This is a parasitic species. It was found in the Malheur National Forest in Oregon. It occupies 900 hectares, and it's estimated to be anything between 2,000 and 8,000 years old. And on the right-hand side, we have a mention to a paper that looked at the clonal evolution and genome stability of a 2,500-year-old fungus, a single organism that occupies 75 hectares of the forest soil. And what they found was that the mutation rate was extremely low. So this thing has been lurking beneath the forest soil for thousands of years, basically unchanged. Now, what I'll be focusing my talk on a quite superficial review of what we can do with fungi to produce materials with interesting properties that may help us solve problems. And just to give you an idea of how these materials can be classified, we have materials that are made of pure mycelium. They do not include any type of other substance, and they are materials that are composites because they are a mixture of mycelium and the components. Okay, the literature on has exploded in recent years, and there are even reviews that address the specific developing countries in Africa where mycelium-based products may play an important role in sustainability and development of the economy for the local populations. So the process flowchart to make a mycelium-based product at its simplest, it's basically mixing a growth, a pure culture that can be grown in a petri dish to produce a mycelium inoculum that can be used to inoculate, to infect a substrate, a lignin-cellulosic feedstock that should be sterilized beforehand. After a period of incubation inside a mold, the product can be harvested and it can be dried to stop the growing process, and any type of post-processing can be implemented at this stage. So this is a technology that is very accessible, that you can on your kitchen bench, and because we are running out of technology that we can do in our kitchen bench, I find this particularly interesting, especially in the context of developing countries that have less capital for investing in more demanding technologies. So most of this comes from the activity of Eben Bayer and Gavin McIntyre, who founded a company that's called Ecovative. They founded the company in 2007, and it took them more or less 15 years to bring the first products to the market. So for 15 years, they were investing in research. They were securing funding for working from the very small pilot scale to the more experimental scale. And right now, they are producing 3 different types of products. And this is an example of a very new technology that I find particularly exciting. And this is going to be a 100% mycelium product that is the result of the growth of aerial mycelium. It's mycelium that grows without being in direct contact with its food source. It can be used for leather products, as we're going to see afterwards. So Eben and Gavin, they've been extremely active. They've been the boundary pushers in this field, and they've registered close to 100 patents at this point. So they've secured for themselves the intellectual property of a lot of these processes. The good news for us is that very often these patents are not worried about South Africa. So, we don't have to have any type of concern over infringement because their ideas are not protected in South Africa. So if you want to join me in this adventure, nobody will get arrested. Okay, so one of the most exciting products that we can generate from that very simple process of inoculating some kind of woody material with a pure culture of mycelium is protective packaging that can be produced by using molds where the substrate is allowed to grow until it acquires the shape of the mold and until all the substrate is invaded by the mycelium. The mycelium will create a very tenacious three-dimensional network that holds the particles together. And after it's dried, it becomes extremely resilient, extremely resistant even to water, and compressive strength. An example of a commercial company that is selling this type of product is Grown Bio. They are in the Netherlands, and they are associated with Ecovative because they are producing their packaging materials under the license of Ecovative. Other exciting explorations of the potential of mycelium reside in architecture. I love design, and I love buildings and shapes and textures, so I'm very biased. We have a few slides over applications in architecture, and this is a very well-known building called the Growing Pavilion. It was produced by Bio-Based Creations, and it was built for the Dutch Design Week in 2019. And since then, it's been disassembled and assembled in a different place. And it's quite beautiful because all the components of this building have been produced either by a very environmentally friendly procedure, or they were grown. These large panels were grown in horizontal, shallow boxes and were shaped to have this beautiful organic look to it. So they were grown one by one, and then everything was assembled to build this structure. And if you go consult to their website, they have a material atlas where they explain how they built every one of the components. So those panels that we've seen in the previous slides were merely decorative. The structure was not load-bearing, but it is also possible to produce structures that are load-bearing. And an example is this very famous mica tree that was built for the Seoul Architecture Biennale in 2017. And it stands, it is possible, it can work because of the compressive strength of the mycelium after it's grown in sawdust. So all you need is the appropriate food, the appropriate temperature, humidity, and time, and you can grow any type of shape that can be that may be able to support some load. Also, another piece of architecture that became very iconic in this field of mycelium-based application is the hyphae pavilion. It was built for the MoMA PS1. It's an exhibition of design in New York, USA, and every brick was individually grown and then assembled into this massive structure, one of the biggest grown so far. So this is both decorative, and it's also load-bearing because the bricks are supporting themselves. Okay, this one is a fascinating structure that is the creation of the hub for biotechnology in the built environment, which is a division, an organization inside Newcastle University in the UK. And this is absolutely fascinating because what they did, they filled these sleeves with mycelium and substrate. It was grown upside down, and then it was allowed to acquire the rigidity after drying, so that it can stand now in an inverted position, but it was grown upside down. So this is absolutely fantastic. This is like filling socks with substrate inoculated with mycelium, allowing it to grow, and then stopping the growth at some point. And it holds, and it has this beautiful cathedral-like quality. In terms of more mainstream products, an Italian company called Mogu, Francesco and Manuela, they produce decorative and acoustic panels for the decoration industry, for the building industry. They've been quite successful, and they produce extremely well designed tiles and also floor material, all based on the idea that mycelium can bind particles together in order to make something that's very resistant. So this is one of the companies that has been gaining market because their products do not look like mushrooms. They look like quite beautiful, sophisticated surface materials. Now, another aspect is end of life treatment of everything, including ourselves. And this company in the Netherlands, where people's positions with regards to death and funerals and burials is much more practical and more relaxed than in many other parts of the world. The company proposed, it's called Loop, because they want to close the loop. And they design and produce these beautiful structures. This is a display tray. This is a proper coffin, and this is an urn where your ashes can be stored or laid to rest in a forest, mixed with seeds, if you want to become part of the environment. Now, this is also a very interesting field of commercial application of mycelium-based products. It's now sold under this name, reishi, and it was invented by Philip Ross. He used to be an artist, and on the side, he grew mushrooms in his living room. I can only imagine how much fun and how beautiful it would have looked. So he started by making, sculptures and furniture that had more decorative than practical purposes. But then it developed a system to turn mycelium into a product that resembles leather so closely that you would not be able to tell the difference. So this has been introduced to the big couture houses. So a few of the French couture houses are already working with this type of product because they want to stay away from animal-based products. There's also another company that does leather, but Philip Ross and reishi have been the pioneers, and they've been operating a big plant that employs 350 people now since September 2023. So this is all very recent and very exciting. And they've now made a partnership with Cadillac to replace automotive leather with mushroom-based leather. So this is not science fiction anymore. It is becoming mainstream, and at some point, any of us will be able to use mycelium-derived leather. Another interesting application is in the food industry. So we're all familiar with the vegan and with the plant-based food products. In the beginning, it was very even challenging, the idea that we would be able to eat hamburgers that looked like meat and tasted like meat and behaved like meat, but had zero animal products. And I think that the next step is to produce those meat lookalikes with mycelium. So we have already a few companies selling their products to the market. Meaty Foods, My Forest Foods with My Bacon. This is one of Ecovative's branches. Also the meatless in nuggets. And I believe that everything that we're seeing here is only going to expand in the near future. And it should, because we have huge problems to solve. Especially, this is my private or my personal little hatred, is the plastic waste. We are producing 430 million metric tons per year, and most of it is because of convenience. It's single-use plastic that is just used to protect your sandwich from the very dangerous environment of the supermarket or the shop where you buy it. A lot of it is frivolous. So 90% of the plastic waste is made up of single-use plastic and microplastics. Microplastics are absolutely horrendous because it's very difficult to get rid of them. Once they invade an environment, and by environment it can mean human breast milk. We've detected microplastics in the human breast milk. When you get to this point, something needs to change. 67% of this, more than 90%, is short-lived plastic. 11% automobile, 11% textile, 11% building, construction, electrical, electronic, and other sectors. We have to do something about this. So I will not defend that mycelium-based applications are the only solution, but they certainly can be part of the solution, and we need solutions. We cannot carry on like this. We will be drowning in plastic very, very soon. And plastic can be a noble material for biomedical applications. For it can have properties that nothing else can have properties. But this frivolous use of plastic for making a spoon or a little straw or some kind of container that's going to be used for half an hour at most, this needs to end. And it is changing. The future has been slow and it's a bit late, but it's coming. France introduced a law that banned non-recyclable styrenic, talking about styrofoam, packaging in 2021. But the implementation of this law has been delayed because the industry is completely unprepared to respond to this ban with an alternative solution. In the UK, from the 22nd of January of 2024, polystyrene food and drink containers have also been banned. Apparently, lots of people are not aware of this yet. But this awareness will become more evident, and we will soon realize that the harm that we are inflicting on the environment is not separated from the harm that we're inflicting on ourselves. So any type of solution that can help has to be explored. And that leads me to the work that I've been doing with my group here at Stellenbosch. We've created something that we call Mushworks, and it's a conceptual platform. It's a way of thinking. It's a name. And I am fortunate enough to be able to work with wonderful people that are here now. And what we do, or what they do. They mix biomass with mycelium, and they're looking for alternative protein sources, biomaterials, and selective breeding of strains that may have properties, the properties that we're looking for. And the local biodiversity is an amazing potential source of new varieties. And as an example, I have the covers of these two books that if you're interested in mushrooms, you should have. And also as an example, these two very recent papers that it's research from the microbiology department from agri-sciences here at Stellenbosch, and they described a new species of lion's mane hiding in plain sight. This is quite a conspicuous mushroom. And with the help of citizen science, they described two novel psilocybin species from Southern Africa, and they produced, or they recorded notes on the traditional hallucinogenic mushroom use. So this shows, this is July 2024, this is March 2023. So these things are out there for anybody to discover and to document. So Katie and Tony and Ethan, they have been prospecting local diversity, and they're working on selective breeding of strains that potentially have interesting properties. They've been learning from scratch because we don't have anybody to talk to at Stellenbosch. It would be nice to have other people with whom to exchange ideas. There are other people at other universities, but here in Stellenbosch, we are at this point a little bit isolated. Ethan and Santari, they're working more on the aspects of alternative protein and the production of biomaterials. And we can see here Santari, she's got a helper, and they're very busy, and they're being interrupted by somebody with a zebra shirt. And what they're doing, they're mixing the substrate with the inoculum, and after this they will pack the inoculated substrate in the molds for growing prototypes. We also run an undergraduate project. Sorry. We called it the Mushroom Book. So we asked two undergraduates to bring a book that they did not like very much. That was the easy part. And they inoculated the book with mushroom spawn after the book had been hydrated in hot water, and they grew beautiful micro mushrooms from the book, and it created an object that looks like it comes from a fairy tale. They are from an edible species. I might not recommend that you eat them because of all the ink and glue. And here we have the packing of the inoculated substrates into the molds. So at this point, it's manual and very low tech, and this is the outcome, the final product after it grew and after it was dehydrated. I have a lot of people that I need to thank, and most of them I should probably ask for forgiveness as well, because I'm sure I did something wrong. But Henk Stander, Willem Bortes, Cameron McCrory, Albert, Michael John, Brayton, Daria, Mashudu, and Sinjan have been absolutely wonderful in this adventure. They've donated their time and their patience more often than sometimes I acknowledge. And I wish to say a big thank you to them as well. And a big thank you to you. It's been wonderful. And I hope that I've created some curiosity in your minds about the potential of mycelium to create new products for very old problems. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Fascinating talk. I'm sure there are questions. Please. The microphone is coming from the back.
I just had a question regarding the mycelium being used for bricks and load-bearing products. So since it is an organic material, it is biodegradable. So does that not mean that it'll be non-feasible in the long term when it comes to construction?
It depends on the utilization. So once, if we get to the market, if we become commercial, my selling point is going to be it does not last forever. As opposed to materials that you cannot decompose. I actually forgot that we brought these prototypes, examine them and touch them and them around. Don't nick them. We know how many we brought. Santuri, do you want to help? Thank you so much. So for some applications, this biodegradability of the mushroom bricks will not be a problem. Nothing has to last forever. If you use a natural material, wood does not last forever. Insulation, if it's a natural material, does not last forever. So it's a question of keeping it away from excess humidity and potential things that can eat it. But it even has interesting fire-resistant properties that are worth exploring. And it can be produced very easily, and it can be discarded very, very easily and very quickly. But yeah, I think that we need to adapt. What is it that we want from the material? Or we need to adapt our utilization in function of what the material can do for us.
You said that it's very susceptible to humidity and things like that. Is it possible to maybe coat it with something?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All those leather-like materials are actually coated with something so that the material is water repellent, because of that, otherwise it would absorb water sooner or later. If you put one of these bricks underwater, you will see that the water, it will repel the water. They actually float very nicely, but you can't submerge them forever. So think about cork material, such that type of material. You have to keep it away from excess. Francesco, sorry.
Yeah, no, there's a question in the middle, and then we come here to the front again. Martin, please.
I wanted to, thank you for a really wonderful talk. I wanted to ask, with the building materials, what about ultraviolet light, and are there things that you can add to protect the material? I think in some plastics they add graphite or something like that to, make it more resistant.
Yeah, that's actually been the blessing and the curse of many green vegan products, is that the bulk of the product is completely biodegradable, it's plant-based, but then the coating, that protective layer, is very difficult to separate from the biodegradable material, and it actually defeats the purpose of creating a product that can be composted. So we have to come up with natural polymers that have this water repellent property, that adds longevity to the product, but do not compromise the biodegradability of the product. So yeah, I think that the questions that are popping up are excellent questions. How long does it last? What can we do to make it last longer?
Thank you for the talk. You mentioned single-use plastics. Are there any current mycelium-based products that fulfill that niche in the market, or that?
Yes, that we can consider that the protective packaging, the styrofoam-like mycelium-based products it was one of the first products that I showed in the presentation. We can consider that styrofoam that protects your new washing machine. That was me this week. That it's single-use plastic. So single plastic does not have to be only associated with food and drink. It can be other types of plastic. And styrofoam is very often single use. It just protects whatever you're buying, and then you have to discard it.
Just sorry, and on that note, is there any health risks associated with mycelium, so for food and drink products?
I don't know of any food and drink containers made of mycelium yet. And I think that is because we don't have those protective layers sufficiently developed that they are safe for food and drink, and they can be degraded. But we need you guys to come and solve these problems.
So you talked a little bit about the fact that these mycelial products are often for decorative use, but you also mentioned that some of them are load-bearing. I was wondering about the general strength of mycelium products, and whether, if you are hoping to make something that will last a little bit longer, if it compares to harder plastics like this that a frisbee would be made out of. Does it compare at all, or is it mostly just for softer single use?
So I don't think we're there yet, but I would think that the mycelium as a binding agent will always be more fragile than 100% mycelium products. So I would imagine that one of those leather-like products that could be shaped and dried, and a protective layer could be added to turn it into a harder material, with more rigidity.
You mentioned that there's mycelium composites as well, which I'm assuming is infused with other materials. Does that potentially have would that potentially be able to replace plastics?
Yeah, because that changes completely. You can fine tune those products for the properties that you want by changing the type of other components that you add. For instance, I've seen microcomposites using glass, using natural stone particles. So anything that can contribute to those properties that you're looking for. It could be compressive strength. It could be can't remember the name now, but does it bend? Shock resistance. If anybody's here from mechanical engineering, please don't laugh, because I cannot remember the names of those things.
Hello. Thank you so much for the talk. It's quite insightful. I absolutely love this specific part of research because it shows that we are trying to find sustainable ways into just dealing with some of the most problematic things that we are facing as Earth. My question is, in terms of the mycelium bricks, would it be a similar alternative as eco bricks?
Right. So by eco-brick, you mean the plastic bottles filled with plastic?
Yes.
Okay. So I completely oppose the eco-bricks, because we are just burying in the sand, literally, a problem that's only going to get worse, because that plastic is not going to biodegrade. It's only going to be broken in smaller and smaller pieces that are going to be more and more difficult to extract from the environment and put them somewhere safe, away from animals and plants and ourselves. So eco bricks are not biodegradable. They are not a sustainable solution. They are basically hiding an excess of plastic away from our site. And I think it's counterproductive, because if we have this type of escape valve or the excess plastic that we produce, we have no motivation to just ban it, because we can always make eco bricks or other types of things that are actually extremely nefarious. The smaller the particles, the more difficult it is to separate them from the natural environment.
Thank you. Here, please.
Thank you very much for this talk. You mentioned that the mycelium has the capacity to bind particles. Is it conceivable that they could be used to absorb or make aggregate microplastics in order for the latter to be removed or collected?
So it aggregates the particles that it feeds on. So I don't know how that could be solved, but using mycelium to fish out microplastics from very difficult to reach places seems like a genius idea. I think it's a very good idea. We would just have to train some species or some variety to bind that plastic and bring it and concentrate it in a way that we can harvest it and dispose of it. So I think it's a very good idea.
Hi, Doctor. So as it's an organic material and it's going to be decomposed at some point in its life, is there any risk with the process of making it better suited to its uses? Is there any risk of that process causing harm to any animals that would ingest it while it's decomposing?
We don't know yet. But if it's just straw and mycelium, a lot of animals eat straw. And there have been a lot of experiments into feeding spent mushroom substrate to cattle as a way of valorizing or giving a second life to that, because not all energy is extracted by the mycelium in the production of mushrooms. So you end up with a bag of straw, if that's the substrate that you're using. It's completely invaded by mycelium. The mycelium cannot produce more mushrooms, but there's still a lot of energy in that complex material. I don't know. I don't remember how good the results were, but it's definitely something that Ethan and I did not pursue further. But when we thought about expanding our production, we would have to think what we do. What is it that how do we dispose of this when it has no more value for us? But it can be composted. It can go to the compost bin.
So yeah,
Please go ahead.
yeah. So my biology almost becomes zero after the high school. So please forgive me if I'm naive. So I always see this very interesting mushroom in the forest called Ganoderma.
Yes.
And especially when I hike in KwaZulu-Natal, like Drakensberg, etc. My question is simple: is that safe to eat?
Ganoderma is amongst the most valued mushrooms in the world. So Ganoderma species is the reishi mushrooms, but they are very bitter. They are edible up to a point, but they're not tasty, and they certainly do not have a pleasant texture. But the extracts from the Ganoderma mushroom and the spores are included in Asian medicine since thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the best species for producing those little bricks that Santorini is holding, because the mycelium is very tenacious and it creates this dry, very strong structure. So mycelium, more often than not, resembles the mushroom that it produces. So the softer the mushroom, for instance, an oyster mushroom will have a very soft mycelium, and something like Ganoderma, which is something you don't even know if it's dead or alive, right? Because it looks like a piece of wood.
Yes, yes.
So the mycelium resembles the mushroom. It's an excellent mycelium for these bricks, this protective packaging, and the leather that Reishi TM produces is also produced from Ganoderma.
Thank you so much.
We have questions from our online participants, Donovan.
We've got two here.
Excellent.
So the first one, in terms of scalability, how long does it take on average to grow a single brick?
Okay, so we are very slow. But in the industrial facilities of Grown Bio and Ecovative, they claim to grow the bulk substrate within 3 to 5 days, and then inside the molds another 3 days, I believe, right? 3. Okay, so it would take a week under optimized conditions.
And then the second one says, since insects are known to eat fungal fruiting bodies, including dried ones, will that be possible danger to packaging or building materials?
If it's single-use packaging, it's a great way of getting rid of the packaging. If it's building materials, then you may have a problem similar to what you have with termite invasions and that type of voracious insect that can eat half of your house. So yes, it can be a problem.
Any other questions? Here we go. Sorry.
Sorry, just one last one. Just in terms of building materials and stuff, I was just thinking like, if say you scratch your house or something happens, you can plaster it over. Is it possible to regrow mycelium that's already been constructed? Can you create a substance that could fill that gap?
Congratulations, you just invented self-healing materials. Yes, it can, and it's a very interesting property because it's like replastering. You can add a bit of substrate and a bit of live material, and you can regrow something that was damaged or that went missing. So that's a very nice possibility as well.
Thank you.
We found a new way to fix potholes. Okay, if there are no more questions, then Barbara, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Francesco. Thank you so much.
As a little sign
Thank you so much,
of,
everybody.
our gratitude, let me give
Thank
you
you.
a magazine that NITheCS publishes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so much.
Thank you. Thank you.